So here in Photoshop, we're just going to cover a few tips for cutting out an image and placing it on a different background. So we've got this portrait here, and the one thing we're going to look at once we've cut it out is just how we can improve quickly that hair on the outside with some of the tools in Photoshop. So first things first, we're going to come up to our toolbar on the left, and we are selecting the Object Selection tool. So I'm clicking and holding on this so you can see the other options there, but we're going to choose this Object Selection, and we're working on this photograph that we've copied and pasted into our layers here. So we'll just select this. That's a nice sharp photo, so it's going to do a reasonable job of finding that edge. And then once we've got that selected, so that we can improve our mask as we kind of create and work on the transparency, we're going to create a layer mask here down at the bottom of our layers panel. And that is going to show the background. And if you look to your layers panel, you'll see a little black and white image on your layer. And basically the black is hiding parts of that layer and the white is revealing parts of that layer. So it's that black and white image that we can then adjust that is going to make this image editable, or the transparency of this image editable, as we work to refine it. So you can see some parts of it aren't looking that great. There's a little bit of jaggedness along the edge here. Then there's also some of the hair, which we'll look at refining now. Sometimes I find that creating a colored layer is a good way of finding those edges that you need to improve. So basically I've got a nice pink layer here. We're going to double click on the layer mask, and then in here we'll be able to do a few things. So the first thing is just increasing the width of the radius here, and you can see in some of these areas, if we zoom in, so along the edge of the face there, when we start to increase the radius there, we'll just pull that up, then it starts to smooth out and kind of improve the edge a little bit. So it's starting to do some smart detection, and you can see also in the hair here as well, it's starting to improve some of that edge. There's still some areas of the hair where we're not finding that improvement, and so we can come up to our hair tool at the top here, and then we can drag across these areas which we haven't caught, and you can see Photoshop will do a pretty good job of kind of finding that transparency. So then we'll do the same here. There's a little bit missing there, and up here too, just dragging over those areas where we can see that background color in there. So we'll scroll up a little bit and just have a look around at what else we've got and try that here. And then we can also turn on our smoothing as well. It's going to apply a bit of smoothing to the edge of our layers. And we'll just look around at the back of the neck here as well. I can increase and decrease the size of my brush so that it's going to affect a smaller area. And I'm using the left and right square brackets just next to the P key to increase and decrease the size of my brush. And then if we use this second tool down, just drag along here, we can add to that selection. It's going to kind of solidify some of that area there. So we'll just go around the rest of it. You can see down here at the bottom, there's a little bit of our image missing there. We can just drag along that, hold down the option if we feel it's gone a bit too far, and just kind of get that area nice and refined. Then we can come across to the right, and that's looking pretty good for what we want. We could maybe up the contrast just a little bit, see if that's going to sharpen up the layer. And then also importantly as well, we want to view this at 100%. If I do Command and 1, it's going to view that 100%, and you can see that's the resolution of image that we have. So in this instance, that's looking pretty good. So if we click OK, then you can see we've kept our original layer there. That's a feature of working on the layer mask with this tool. When we double click on it, it's basically going to output to a new layer with a layer mask at the bottom here. So that means we can always go back to our original layer if we have any issues, and you can change that setting to basically just work on the selection or the layer mask and actually stay within that layer. But we created a new layer there, which means we can see the difference now between our modified layer and our original layer. So you can see starting to get a bit of that hair transparency and the detail around the hair improved. We'll put this background on, and you can see that's starting to look pretty good. We've got a nice background there, and just to increase the contrast a little bit, we could add a hue saturation adjustment layer here just above that layer we've put in the background, and we can either darken that or lighten it. And you can see sometimes with your edges, depending on what image is going to be in the background, you may need to work on it differently. So if we actually lighten this image in the background, it matches a bit better the original background, and so we're going to get a better blend overall. So we can have a bit of a lighter background, mute it a bit, we could even pitch the color a little bit, the tint, and then kind of see where that image lands and how it looks good. We could also come onto this layer and maybe even add a blur on there as well. And probably not that much. We'll dial that down and just kind of let that background blur out a little bit to give it a bit more depth in that image. So some quick tips for using the layer mask and improving the hair cutout when you're working in Adobe Photoshop. If you have any questions, then leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you on the next video.